Man, it's getting chilly outside, and just like the weather, the real estate market here in the Bay Area might be cooling down a little. Coming up on this Silicon Valley Snapshot. The latest trend graphics reports for the month of September are now in, and we're starting to see signs of a potential slowdown here in the Bay Area real estate market a lot sooner than we're used to seeing. Typically, in September and October, we're used to seeing a really healthy fall market, and then we usually see things start to slow down after Halloween and Thanksgiving, just depending on the year, but sometime between Halloween and Thanksgiving, we tend to see the market slow down ever so slightly, but this year seems to be a little bit different. So we're going to get into that data and we're going to dissect it. But before we get into the data, if you're a home buyer in today's marketplace and you're trying to figure out, is now the right time for me to buy a home? And if I am going to be buying a home, what should I be offering for a house? What markets do I need to be writing over ask for? Which markets should I be writing under ask for? All of that information will be answered when you text the word data, plus the zip code or the neighborhood or the area that you're looking in. And if you're a home seller in today's marketplace and you're trying to figure out, is now the right time for me to sell my home? And if so, what should I be pricing my property for? Right now, pricing strategy matters more than almost ever. So if you are interested in that report, you can text the word data plus your property address to the number down below. All right, so let's dive straight into the data, and we'll start with Santa Clara County. Now, here in Santa Clara County, Silicon Valley proper, we have 961 homes active on the market right now and 845 homes pending. Now, if you notice, this is a big difference. We're seeing a shift now in the Santa Clara County marketplace. We had seen this previously in the East Bay and other parts of the Bay Area, but Santa Clara County was holding strong. Active inventory or pending supply was outpacing active inventory for many, many months. In fact, if you look at this graph, we'd have to go back until January of this year to see the last time when active inventory was outpacing supply. And whenever pendings are outpacing active inventory, it means we have more demand than supply, way more demand than supply. In fact, we have so much more demand than supply that the market typically, when we see pendings outpacing supply, is white hot. But that trend is now reversed here in September. So if we see that, active inventories are slightly outpacing pending inventory, and we want to continue to monitor this. But this is a very different outcome than I would have anticipated, because heading into the fall, heading into September, typically we see August kind of level off. So we see a lot of times in the July and August timeframe, we'll see the market taper back a little bit. And then in the fall, we'll see the market rev up, and we'll see that pendings start to outpace supply, or pendings start to increase and supply starts to decrease. Well, the exact opposite happened this year, where supply increased and demand decreased. So a very different fall market than we're used to experiencing here in the Bay Area, specifically here in the South Bay. Now, shooting on up the peninsula to San Mateo County, we had 637 homes active on the market and 352 homes pending. Now, kind of a similar story to Santa Clara County, where actives are outpacing pendings, but this has been the story for a while now. So if you look at this graph, you'll see there's really been no time in the last year and a half where pendings have outpaced supply. And so the market has been a lot more stable in San Mateo, but the amount of inventory that has come on in the last 30 days should raise some eyebrows. So if we look at that, we see active inventory has increased by 120 units. Now, put that in perspective, that's up 20%. So there's 20% more houses month over month. That's a lot of additional inventory, and it's not getting swallowed up. We're seeing pendings taper off a little bit in September. So this is something to pay attention to as we go into the fall months. Are we going to see active inventory continue to climb? My hypothesis here, and of course, this is just a hypothesis, but when you look at this data and you're looking at how long the inventory levels have been suppressed here in the Bay Area, because this only goes back 15 months. But if we were to go back historically and look at inventory levels in San Mateo County, we're still at very low inventory levels for San Mateo County. We're low inventory levels around the Bay Area, period. And so a lot of sellers are done waiting. And my hypothesis here is that at some point in time, it was going to give. And so we're not seeing the floodgates open. The sellers are not incentivized right now to sell. Interest rates are high. So whenever they sell their home, they're going to be buying something that's less appealing. So if they're downsizing, right, they're going to buy less home and their monthly payment is going to probably be higher. So they're going to trade in an inferior product to pay more for it. That's not going to happen. So a lot of people are still holding onto their houses, except for the ones that just can't take it anymore. They've got things, they're going out of state. And so maybe that's not necessarily the case. They're going to buy a better house out of state anyways, and it's going to be way cheaper. And so why are we going to wait, honey, to just like get a few $100,000 extra out of this house when we've already made a lot of money over the last 10, 15 years that we've owned it? And so we're just going to take this equity. We're going to go to Arizona, and then we're going to buy a house there. It's going to be way nicer, way less expensive, and we're just going to make that move now. Those are the people that are moving, not the ones that are downsizing here in the Bay Area. Those people are staying put, but this is the beginning. And so we don't know how long this is going to last, but the floodgates haven't opened, but there's some leakage. And that is very apparent here, especially in the San Mateo County data and the East Bay data, which we're going to be getting into in a second. But before we head over to the East Bay, let's head up the peninsula to San Francisco. We had 1,346 homes active on the market and 385 homes pending. Now, this is something that we are used to seeing in the fall, by the way. So we are used to seeing active inventory increase fairly significantly in the fall. So seeing inventory increase, if you watched last month's Silicon Valley snapshot, you'll know that this is something that I said, hey, this could very well happen. And it did. Now, pendings have followed suit. So we're seeing pendings increase by about 20%, which is great, but inventory levels have gone up 35%. And that is something to be cognizant of as we head into the winter months. Is it going to get worse? But if you're a home seller in San Francisco, it really hasn't been great for you for a while now, unless you're selling a single family home in a very desirable neighborhood. But if we're looking at this data and we're left to interpret it, really the only thing I could say is this is standard for San Francisco. It's not an anomaly to see inventory levels rise in the fall. Let's see what happens to the inventory levels though in the winter, and that will dictate what the future looks like in 2024 for the San Francisco housing market. All right, heading on over to Alameda County, we have 1,029 homes active on the market, 686 homes pending. Now, this is something that we are seeing both in Alameda and Contra Costa County, which we're going to get into in a second, but look at that increase in inventory levels. We had almost a 20% increase in inventory levels, so very similar increases between the East Bay and San Mateo County, and we had a drop, a fairly significant drop actually in pending activity. We had 773 homes pending in August and only 686, so we had almost 100 less homes, which equates to about a 15% drop or so in pending activity. That's nothing to sneeze at, especially when you couple that with the fact that inventory levels increased by 20%. So when you increase inventory levels by nearly 20% and pendings decrease by nearly 15%, that's a 35% margin. That's a delta, an increased delta between supply and demand of 35% month over month. That is nothing to sneeze at. And the ramifications of this, by the way, won't be felt in September. They'll be felt later on in Q4. And so if you're a buyer, I would be paying attention to this. And if you're a seller, I would also be paying attention to this because this information impacts your decision-making over the next 3 months. And then Contra Costa County, 1,001 homes active on the market, 707 homes pending. If you notice, very similar story where we had about a 15% decrease in pending activity month over month. And this time, not as drastic as Alameda County, so about a 10% increase in inventory levels. So about a 20% delta there, or increase in delta rather, which is not as bad as Alameda County, but it is still something to be cognizant of, that the market conditions are definitely becoming more and more favorable for buyers, and it remains to be seen how far this is going to go, really. And so that's what we're going to spend the rest of this video talking about. Typically in the summer market, we see a bit of a slowdown. Buyers go out of town. We have a lot of distractions. We have vacations, we have weddings, we have graduations, we have all of these things going on. We have 4th of July. Of course, we got to make the annual trip to Disneyland or Disney World, and buyers are distracted during the summer. And typically, a lot of sellers decide to put their homes on during the summer months because that's when they've got the most free time to actually devote to the sale of their property. Not only that, but there's this misconception that summer is the best time to sell your home. So you couple that with the fact, oh, honey, it's the best time to sell our home. Plus we have all this free time. Let's sell our house. Typically what happens is that in the summer, for that reason, we see a bit of a slowdown in the market. It's actually a better time to buy in the summer than it is in the spring or the fall, typically. Now, after school comes back in session, after Labor Day, we see a resurgence in the market. Typically, we have less homes on the market because sellers are now like, oh, well, honey, we don't want to have the home marketed right now. We've got a lot of the things going on. And we get a lot of buyers who are back into their routine. And so they can go shopping for homes on the weekdays and shopping for open houses on the weekends. But that isn't happening this year. And so it's something that we need to really pay attention to and ask ourselves, why is this happening? I alluded to it earlier in the video. I believe a big part of this, the inventory issue. I believe a big part of the inventory issue has to do with the fact that there is this pent up inventory. There are a lot of people who have wanted to move for the last year and a half who have not moved ever since rates skyrocketed in May of 2022. There have been a lot of sellers who saw the prices of May and April and March of 2022 and been like, well, I want my bag too. And now that they can't get it, they're sitting on the sidelines, but that will only last for so long. And so there's a lot of sellers who are seeing the prices come back up now. They've definitely rebounded. And in a lot of cases, we're seeing prices very close to where they were in March of 2022. Not quite, but comparable enough to where some sellers are saying, you know what, like, screw it. The market's good enough. It's good enough. And we're going to do it. And that is this leakage that I'm talking about, where it's this inventory leakage. It's not coming out all at once, but over time, I think we're going to see some of this pent up inventory being introduced to the market. And I think that's where that additional inventory is coming from. Couple that with the fact that interest rates have been creeping up ever so slightly over the last 45 days. And as a result, I think you're seeing some buyers pull back right now at the same time. So it's this very interesting time where some sellers are fed up and they're really thinking, you know what? I'm done waiting. I'm just going to do it. And you've got buyers who are reacting in real time to the real conditions of the debt market. And they're saying, there's no way that I'm going to be buying a home right now. It was already expensive enough. And now it's gone up XYZ amount, and I'm no longer interested in buying a house at this moment in time. So it is a very interesting phenomenon. It remains to be seen what's going to happen over the next 3 to 6 months. There's a lot of speculation, and I'm not really going to get into hypothesizing or pontificating or speculating as to what is going to happen with interest rates. But one thing I know for sure is that if you are a seller and you're looking at this right now, then there's really only two ways to interpret it. Either you say, hey, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be patient. So if you have the ability to be patient right now, I do think that you're going to come out ahead in the long run. But you should also, if you're a seller and if you're planning on selling in like the next 24 months, as my colleague Billy said very eloquently earlier today, I was on a call with him. He said, you know what? Sellers have to be ready right now because there's going to be an opportunity where pendings will go up. So we'll see a resurgence, and it might not be all over, but demand is spotty. We're looking at a macro level here, the Bay Area and countywide, but every neighborhood has its pockets of time and pockets of opportunity where the amount of competition that you have is very low as a seller, and the demand is super high. And when that happens, you might want to take a shot at it because you don't know how many shots you're going to get. Because the other thing to keep in mind here too is when we're looking at rates and we're looking at what that is doing, not just to demand, but also to supply. Keep in mind, this is maybe one of the only times that I can think of, actually the only time that I can think of really, over the last 10 years where rates have done just as much to impact inventory as they have demand. It is a very interesting phenomenon because typically when rates come down, we see prices skyrocket, buyers react in real time. I do believe that prices are going to go up when interest rates come down this time, but it remains to be seen how much because it remains to be seen how much supply enters the market once interest rates go down. Because once interest rates go down, I think that there's going to be a lot of sellers that come off the sideline that are ready to make their next move. So when that happens as a seller, if you're going to be patiently waiting, then you need to be patiently waiting and also ready to move at a moment's notice. If you're a buyer and you're watching this video right now, the message is pretty clear. Q4 is going to be a softer market than maybe we would have anticipated otherwise. Now, there are certainly areas where you're getting 10, 15, 20 offers. And so I would be vigilant and I would look out for those properties because there clearly are some that aren't getting offers the first weekend. And sure, maybe that's not like the greatest house in the world. But if your objective is to get a better deal as opposed to getting the best house on the block, see, here's the thing. You can't have both. You can't have the greatest house on the block and get a great deal. Because guess what? Everyone wants that house too. So if you're willing to pay the piper and pay top dollar for the best possible house in the best possible street, awesome. That's great. But if you are more focused on getting the deal and getting something that's a little bit more of a bargain, although I don't know if we can classify anything here in the Bay Area as a bargain, but if you're looking for something that's a little bit more of a bargain, I do believe that you're going to see more and more inventory sit on the market for a week 2 weeks, 3 weeks, which in the Bay Area is a long time. But if you look at the rest of America, 3 weeks is a very standard time for a home to be on the market. In fact, there's some markets where it's like home's been on the market for 2 months. Yeah, that's pretty normal. Here, it's not. And we label it with some sort of scarlet letter that like, oh, we shouldn't be touching that property. Well, those are the properties that are going to be a lot more negotiable coming into the winter market, because we have to think about what are the sellers thinking. So the sellers are thinking, well, my neighbor just sold their house in 7 days. Why hasn't mine sold? And so when you have an opportunity to get into a home where the seller has seen all of their neighbors sell in 7 days or less, and their home is sat for 14 to 21 days due to the newer, like the more recent market conditions, the more like the realities of what the market is today, then you're going to have more flexibility on terms and price. And I do believe that that's going to be the case for at least the next 3 months. And by the way, whether you are a home buyer in today's marketplace or you are a home seller in today's marketplace here in the Bay Area, and you're looking for an agent who isn't a salesperson, but rather an advisor, someone that's going to be able to help you make the decision that's best for you, then reach out to me, the number down below. My team is always here to help. This is Danny Gould, everyone. I'm selling Silicon Valley, and I will catch all of you in the next video.